to start, and that's also why I sort of had the keyboard shortcuts up before. So just to reiterate, we held Control on the scale, negating it, and that sort of gives me a bit more of my base shape. So now that I have that, let's actually clean it up a little bit. We'll just move some stuff in place here. I'm just going to continue to add some geometry. And if you've noticed, here's another thing where this is maybe like the 8th time, or you could see, maybe you're starting to see it could get a little tedious to constantly go up to this edit mesh and always grab my insert edge loop tool every time I need to drop an edge loop in. So what you can do is you have this shelf here, and you can create custom shelves, and you can have some of the tools that you use frequently on this shelf. So I have the edge loop tool, and that just brings it up right there for me, and then I can just drop it in and use it. So in order to add things to the shelf, all you need to do, go to that object here, hit Control Shift and left click on the tool, and there it goes, it shows up on my toolbar. If I want to get rid of it, middle mouse click and hold, I can just drag it over to that trash can, and that will get rid of it for me. Okay, so I'm just going to shape this apple a little bit. So at this point, I've sort of got the base shape going. And what I want to do now, actually, you do want to make sure that you're checking it from both angles. So we'll just clean that up a little bit. So now I want to get the top and the bottom of this. We'll deal with the top for now. Also keep notice I'm starting to gain a lot of history here. After a while, this can start to become a problem because it's remembering all of this. So after a little while, we're going to have to come back and delete that. In order to do that, we want to go Edit, Delete by Type, History. That will remove it, but it'll make it better for us in the long run. If you get too much history, it can slow down your reaction time in the program, because it's like keeping all that stuff in RAM. So once you clear that out, your program will run smoother. If you ever find that you're starting to lag a little bit, that's usually the first place that I look. I just clear the history. It can also, if you don't clear it, it can cause problems because it's trying to load all of that stuff up in RAM when you load up your file, and sometimes that can cause the file to crash or become corrupt. So it is important to clear that from time to time. Okay, so back to extrude. So I'm going to go to my face mode here. I'm going to left click to select, and I'm going to shift left click to select these other faces. I'm going to come up here to edit mesh. I'm going to go to extrude, and I'm going to click that. So this tool it's a little bit complicated at first, especially compared to the other ones we've used at this point. So right now I have created faces on faces. If I click my scale tool here, click that little box, this will allow me to scale universally, and we can see that I'm now scaling inwards. If I didn't do that, that is still existing right now in this state. So if I unclick off of that and I select my face, I pull up my move tool, those faces are still there. You don't want those faces to be on top of one another like that. It's faces on faces, and that'll cause you a lot of problems in the long run. Sometimes it can lead to issues when you're trying to manipulate stuff. Maybe you're grabbing a vert, and then that kind of stuff starts to happen, where you have geometry poking through geometry. Things start to shade wrong. Sometimes it can lead to situations where you're putting an edge loop through, and the edge loop looks like it stops on you. An edge loop should always go through your object. The only time it stops is if it hits a five-sided face or a triangle. So if you ever notice a situation where an edge loop isn't going through for you, that's a sign of an issue that you have with your geometry. And this can just cause problems. If we were making like a character here and we had a bunch of hidden faces, when we try and rig that, that's gonna cause a lot of issues, because we're gonna have weighting issues, and there's gonna be weird geometry that's sitting in there and doing stuff that we don't want it to do. So we always want to make sure that we avoid faces on faces. And the best way to do that is when we hit extrude, we want to make sure that we always do something with that. Either be it pull it up with our arrow. If I hit this scale button, I can then scale it in. But we want to make sure that we're always sort of moving it off of where it is. If you ever find a situation where you feel like you've extruded and you accidentally click off for some reason, which sometimes happens if you're pulled out or you're working on something small, what I do is I undo to make sure that I don't have those faces on faces. And it's just a preventative measure to make sure that the geometry stays clean. So I'm going to go back up to Edit Mesh, go to Extrude. I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to scale it in. And let's do that again. Oops. Oh, look at that. I accidentally had a face selected, but that's kind of good. We'll fix that later on, but I'll unselect it for now. We'll use that as a reason to show some more tools. So I'm going to extrude again here. While I have this up, I might as well also show, see this little modifier over here? This looks like a power button. If I click that, left click that, that will switch between local and world mode for your faces. So if you ever have like a cube, say we turn this a bit here, and extrude, local will point in the direction that our face is going. World won't. It'll be the world of where we're at in our 3D world, corresponding to our X, Y, and Z planes down there. So sometimes it is nice to move things in accordance with the world view, and sometimes it is actually nice to move things in accordance to the local view. And that button will turn that on and off. So it's just helpful to know that. And usually when I'm working on something like this, I will sometimes, like, I'll just hit W to put myself in world mode, or I'll move that to put myself in world mode. So let's take a look at this. I'm actually going to pull this down, I think. And I'm going to start bringing this, the top of this apple inwards. So I'm just going to scale that in. Just pull that down a little bit. And here's another opportunity to show another tools. If I hit G, I can just redo my last action. So that's really helpful for starting to move quickly. So that should give me what I need. It's still not perfect, but I'll do some shaping more when I'm done. And I think what I'll do here, I'm going to grab these verts, hit R to scale. I'm going to hit Control just to avoid that vertical scale. I'm going to make that a little more cylindrical. This would be a bit of a high poly, although not very high poly. Apple. And I'll just bring that in there. And then once we have that, hit G again. I'm going to hit W to just pull that out here. And that's going to help create our stem. I'm going to hit E just to rotate that. And then here's where G comes in handy. If I go to Edit Mesh, Extrude, I'll hit W just to pull that out, E to rotate, R to scale it in, G, W, pull it out, rotate, scale. Let's do it one more time. E, rotate, R to scale. And you can see that can go pretty quickly then. So you can make shapes pretty fast. So let's do the bottom here a little bit, and then we'll fix that issue, and then we'll talk about a couple more things. So I'm just gonna extrude. I'll just Control Shift, and I'm gonna left click. I'm gonna put that on my shelf there for easy access. And extrude that in. Oops. And I think we'll start pulling that part in a bit. Maybe not. Oops. But I will pull that in. Just go to vertex mode, and I'll just pull that up a little bit. So, I mean, it conveys the idea of an apple. We could still tweak it, certainly, and forgetting about this box part that's out of it. We can still tweak it to make it look a little bit nicer. But we got some of the beginning shapes going. So let's deal with this box that we have here. So one thing that we want to remove this, and I'll just mention this, there will inevitably come a time where you will want to remove an edge, and you will want to double click it to select it, and then you will hit delete. But that is the wrong way to do it. You don't want to do it that way, and the reason is if I go to vertex mode, we can still see that there are verts left behind by that edge that were not there previously. And what this is doing is it's creating an n-gon, which means basically a n